Good evening and welcome to Who's Your Daddy, the first ever parenting show hosted by a man, me. I'm Marlon Abrahams and it's fantastic to have you on board with us. Now most of you have probably read my columns which have been published and broadcast on various platforms like on the internet, on parent24.com, samen.co.za, singledad.com, as well as newspapers like The New Age and magazines like Status Quo magazine. And if you've read my columns, you'll know that I'm very passionate about parenting. I'm also very involved with the upbringing of my kids. And what makes tonight so cool is this is an opportunity to share that experiences with you and for you to interact with us. Later on, we'll be flashing a number on the screen and I'm going to expect you guys to call in and share your experiences with us and my guests. Now, we're going to be on this platform for the next 12 weeks, right here on channel 319, Mindset, for the next 12 weeks. So what I need you guys to do is to spread the word so that people can watch and interact with us. Tonight being the first episode, I thought we'd start at the beginning, conception. And in the studio with me, I've got some guests, experts in that field who are going to shed some light on what happens when sperm meets the ovaries and what happens after that. But before we get there, we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at what happens when boy meets girl, boy checks out girl, girl checks out boy, and what do they decide? What are the factors that they're thinking about in making the decision to actually have sex and then have children with the particular partners? And at this moment, I'd like to introduce my guest. First of all, Dr. Boris Jivkov, leading obstetrician and gynecologist at Parkland Clinic right here in Johannesburg. Welcome to the show, Doctor. Good to have you here. Next up, I'd like to introduce Ramon Thomas. Now, Ramon's got a fantastic job, very interesting. He helps guys to get laid. Ramon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marlon.
Great. I'm particularly looking forward to your input into the show. And lastly, Timothy Philippa. Now, you might look at Timothy and think, you know, what does he do? I can tell you, Tim is a mixed martial artist, and he can kick butt. I've seen him in action. But Tim's got two fantastic little boys, and he's a single dad to them. Tim, how old are your kids?
6 and 3.
Fantastic. Now, what I'm going to do with Tim, we're going to go back, and I'm going to ask him, in his relationship with Wendy, was there one particular moment when he looked at her and decided, you know what, I'd really like to have her be the mother of my kids? And if so, why? So those are the issues we're going to explore. But on with the show. Ramon, let's start with you. You obviously, you're a dating coach. You help guys meet Miss Right or Miss Right now. What is the trend out there? Are guys becoming more discerning? Are they looking for Miss right away? Or are we just still in it for the shag?
Well, the younger guys that I work with, they are just in it for the shag. They want to actually build their confidence. They haven't had a lot of experience and exposure to women. And I work with them on overcoming that. The moment they get into relationships, I think that's when they start to realize, whoa, you know, this is a whole new ball game. So that's what they eventually realize. So I don't try and push the issue, but ultimately, after having worked with over 300 guys, I can safely say that deep down inside them is a desire to have a very good and profound connection with a woman from the opposite sex.
Now, there's a school of thought that says a woman's intuition is much more evolved than ours. I mean, when she's checking you out, she's looking at your muscle tone, your sort of stature, even the texture and quality of your teeth, some experts say. And they do it subconsciously, apparently. And also, apparently, us guys, as I say, we're looking at the curves, we get the stimulation and then we jump into it. In your sort of line of work, are guys actually saying to you, you know what, I want a specific kind of woman for specific reasons? Are we becoming more discerning?
No, most guys cannot articulate what specifically they want. And actually, I love that because it does make it more of a challenge. Now, I love to talk about this elusive, obvious that we call chemistry. When you go online dating, speed dating, well, online dating, cell phone dating kind of things, like anything involving technology, you remove that element of chemistry. When you have speed dating or some kind of social interaction like a salsa party or a birthday party, there is, you don't know, like, there's something about that person that's attractive to you. And, you know, something that I've realized is, you know, if you go way back, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions of years, there are certain things that have been programmed into us as male and female that are triggers. And there's a whole science that's developed around what's called evolutionary psychology, and people like Matt Ridley have written books like The Red Queen, which explains these sort of unconscious factors that has been programmed genetically that makes a man attracted to a woman or a specific woman and a woman attracted to a specific man.
Okay, now let me stop you there. Let me ask you this. in your experience, now you obviously you bring the guys together, and I'm sure there's sort of a feedback mechanism where they tell you, okay, I've met so and so, we're in a relationship now, it's going well. Just in your opinion, in terms of offspring, in terms of two people getting together and having children and transferring those genes and that kind of thing, your advice to guys, should we actually be looking at a woman from that perspective? Let's say you meet Miss Right and you now want to go down that road and have children with her. Should you be actually looking at her and saying, you know, I want my boy to have the mother's speed, maybe she's an athlete, or the intelligence, or the color of the eyes and that kind of, are those kind of things important, do you think?
Yes, there's something that I advise them to look at. As I said, they themselves are not conscious about the things that they specifically want in the woman, because let's say guys in their 20s predominantly, they just really want to get that confidence with women and meeting and be comfortable with women. In their 30s, they are looking at obviously settling down, getting married. They're looking at, and even the divorced men that I coach in their 40s and 50s, they like, well, okay, I never had any kids. I have one client that I coached, and he said, I want a woman that's able to have kids. But now, I think to answer your question specifically, I say to them, like, if you want to have a long-term relationship with this woman, you've got to make sure that she has the qualities that you're looking for in a woman. And then we work, there's some exercises in terms of determining what it is they're looking for, and also what they don't want. And then looking at the things and combining that into a story of what the person, the man that they need to become to attract that kind of woman.
Great. Excuse me. Now, Tim, you've heard Ramon's version. Now, you've experienced it. I mean, you've got two little boys. You've got a, I know Wendy, your ex-partner, beautiful girl. Did that happen for you? Was there that moment where you sat down and thought, that's going to be the mama of my boys?
Well, I don't think initially when you start dating someone, you actually think of having kids with them. But I do remember that, you know, 2 months into our relationship, we actually chatted about it briefly, and we said, wow, you know, one day if we have kids, what would they look like? You know, how, you know, would they look like me? Would they look like you? Or would they have the best of both? So I think after you've reached a certain level with your partner and you do start chatting about it, I think that's when you really do start thinking, you know, is it time now to conceive or try and have kids?
And what would be the criteria? I mean, is it just visual stimulation? I mean, is that enough to want to have kids, or does intelligence and like strength of character and those, does that play an important part, do you think?
I think the visual stimulation will always be the first point.
Boys will be boys.
100%. You'd look at your partner and you think, wow, you know, she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, my kids will come out gorgeous. You know, we make a good match. But I do think there is also something to do with what I call genetic compatibility, meaning that two people are genetically compatible and they're able to conceive.
Great. I think we're gonna get into that sort of a little bit more deeper with Dr. Boris over here, and we're gonna look at what happens once boy meets girl and they're comfortable and they, you know, going to do the deed. So I want your perspective on that after the break, Doctor. But for now, Ramon, just one last sort of issue on that. Is there a big difference between older guys that have been divorced and the choices they make, or younger guys? Do they want the same thing?
They really want the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they pretty much want the same thing. And as I said, like once they are meeting lots of women, that process helps them figure out what they don't want.
Okay, great. We've got to cut for an ad break quickly. When we get back, Dr. Jivkov will be chatting to us about what happens when the lights goes down there. Be right back. Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching Who's Your Daddy, the first ever parenting show hosted by a man. I'm Marlon Abrahams, and I'm your host. Now, before the break, we chatted about the laws of attraction and those subtle little messages that go in between a man and a woman when they meet, and what sort of influences their decision to have children with that particular partner. But right now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Boris Jivkov once again. And Doctor, what I want to chat to you about is, what do we need to know as guys in terms of sperm mobility, you know, making sure a good, healthy conception actually occurs? I mean, what is important for us guys to know?
Boys are genuinely lucky. We produce sperm on a 3-month basis from cells that are completely different.
3 months?
kind of every 70 days you have a completely fresh, renewed supplies.
Okay, but now hold on a second. If you've got a 3-month supply, if it's renewed every 3 months, you're saying that we've got like fraught sperm for 3 months in our sacs?
No, not fraught. The difference is that when a woman is born, she's got her eggs in her ovaries. And as she ages, if she's 20, those eggs are 20 years old. When she's 30, they're 35 years old.
Okay.
That's why women's fertility basically with age decreases, and it's considered actually a form of self-preservation for them.
Okay.
Well, with us, if we're 17 or 70, we basically generally would have good quality sperm.
Okay.
And sometimes you might have erectile dysfunction. Well, many of us at 60 will have erectile dysfunction to a degree. But there are ways to obtain sperm, and that sperm is still completely viable.
Okay, that's actually fantastic.
You're looking at different aspects. I mean, general health obviously is important. The history of trauma, sports or bike accidents, injury to the spinal cord.
But hold on a second. An injury like that, like let's say you come off your bike and you hit your nuts on the seat or something, or on the bar or whatever, can that actually affect the quality of your sperm?
If you have a trauma to the spine, you will not be able to have an erection and to basically have intercourse, but your sperm will be absolutely viable still.
Okay, so
but if there's a direct damage to the sperm, that would be a problem to the testes.
Okay, but in terms of the condition of the sperm, the health of the sperm, how fast the little tadpoles are going and that kind of thing, basically there's nothing we can do, the body takes care of it, it's always healthy, or is there something that we can do?
In a way, yes. They say that, well, the reason that the testes are in a scrotum is because they have to live at a lower temperature. So if you wear too tight clothes or trunks, and they used to claim that tight jeans or bicycle riding basically is associated with, with higher temperatures that could impair the quality of the sperm.
Okay.
But generally a good health and absence of medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, it means that you're pretty fit to procreate.
Okay, let's get your take on what we've been talking about. I mean, I know you sort of get involved once the sperm has left the building and it's in the vaginal canal, but let's talk about what these guys have been talking about. Your take on that. I mean, you've probably delivered a few babies in your time. Wait, hold on. Let me ask you this. Has there been an occurrence when this baby's coming out of there and you look at mom and dad and you think, what the hell were you thinking? How important is it to make that, to be conscious of that genetic selection, in your opinion?
I think a lot of things that happen in our interrelationship with the opposite sex are subconscious.
Okay.
There were theories in the 1800s when electricity was invented and physical models of atoms was created that opposites are attracted, like the pluses and the minuses, the electrons and protons. It isn't necessarily true. I mean, we feel more comfortable with people that are like us. Right. But on the other hand, on a completely subconscious level, there are immunological aspects of our attraction to the other sex, which somehow means that something is programmed that we would meet in most cases or be attracted and experience lust and passion towards a person with which we most likely will procreate and continue mankind.
The problem is that it's good in theory, but a lot of us sort of meet miss wrong and miss right, and we still go through the motions and end up with heartbreak and all kinds of interesting issues. But let's get back to the medical side of things. I don't know if this is applicable in South Africa, but I've seen it often in American movies. When couples get married, they are advised to go and have a blood test. What is that about? Is that sort of to make sure your blood is not incompatible and you don't end up with a baby with 9 heads, or what is that about?
As a matter of fact, there are countries in which before marriage people are obligatory supposed to go for certain tests. You're looking, on one hand, it's about sexually transmittable diseases, and I think especially in South Africa, in an environment of rampant HIV epidemics, we need to know that before you have unprotected intercourse with a partner, you should together go and have basically your HIV test done. We are supposed to have an ethical kind of obligation when we have unprotected intercourse to disclose HIV, herpes, certain conditions.
That makes absolute sense from a health perspective, but what I'm trying to get at is it necessary? Let's say I meet somebody and I find her attractive and we want to have kids. Is it necessary to have a blood test, check our maybe genetic history, maybe there's insanity in my family or she's got a serial killer in her family? How important is it to know exactly who you're shagging and whose kid you're going to have?
In certain population groups, particularly Ashkenazi Jews, for example, there's a great prevalence of certain conditions. It could be liver disorders, it could be other more serious endocrine disorders, and many of those people that are from these population groups are advised basically even by the religious authorities to go and do those tests. So there are certain things that have to be tested in certain people.
And your advice to couples wanting to have children, do you think they should go for those tests?
I think it's an interesting aspect because women generally look after themselves pretty well. Most women go once a year to a gynecologist and have checkups, and they actually have a medical professional with who they discuss these things. I'd never did it myself, and I don't have a single friend who ever spoke to a doctor about what do I have to do before I decide to have children.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, and that's why we're having the show. I mean, guys, if you're sitting out there and you're wondering, you know, some of the subjects we're talking about, if you've never heard of it before, it's now the time for you to call in. We're going to go to a commercial break. If you don't want to call in, please follow me on Twitter, check out my email address, all my contact details. It will be on the screen after the show. But for now, we're going to take an ad break, and I hope to hear from you after the break. Welcome back. And again, if you've just joined us, you're watching Who's Your Daddy, the first ever parenting talk show hosted by a man, and I'm Marlon Abrahams. Now, we've been chatting about sex and sperm and ovaries and women and how to meet the right woman and how to make good babies. And it's been quite interesting because there have been several opinions raised here. And right now, I want you guys back home to sit, if you're watching this with your partner, have a look at him or her. If they're not there, imagine them. Remember what your kids look like if you have kids. And I want you to ask yourself, did you choose consciously to have a kid with that man or that woman? And after you've thought about that, I want you to look at your kids and ask yourself, are you happy with the outcome? I know Tim's very happy because I've met his boys and they are beautiful boys. And this is the first of a 13-part series, and I thought we'd start at the beginning, and that's why we're talking about conception and relationships. Now, off air, we were chatting about something very interesting. Dr. Jivkov here explained to us how us guys are really lucky in that our sperm rejuvenates itself. We get fresh sperm every 3 months. How about that? That's why a guy at 80, even though he might be erectile dysfunctional, can still, you know, donate his sperm and have a very healthy baby. But now apparently, doctor, we were talking about artificial insemination or whatever, and Ramon, you were saying that it's important for the sperm to enter the vaginal canal because there's, sorry, doctor, you were saying there's enzymes that impact on the sperm that affect the quality of the conception eventually. Sure. Just go into that a little bit.
It's a process called capacitation, and it is one of the greatest difficulties in modern in vitro fertilization techniques. We cannot imitate it in a laboratory. It's a process that happens when the sperm is deposited in the vagina. It goes through the cervix, through the uterus, it meets the egg in the fallopian tubes, those things that
so it goes in and then out.
Correct.
How does it know which one to go to? Because
it's called chemotaxis. It's actually attracted by the egg itself.
Oh, fantastic.
They only move against each other if a woman has ovulated. Otherwise, they don't. They don't swim just because.
Yeah.
So in that process of capacitation, there is something that happens which we cannot imitate in laboratories. And what Ramon was saying earlier is that in a modern world or in a futuristic world where we might live in ways that we have to produce only artificial or reproduce with artificial insemination, there will be probably something lost in that immunological capability of the human to.
Interesting. Now let's just talk quickly about. I've just now thought about ejaculation. I mean, do you need to give the little guys a good start to get up there, or can they pretty much find their way once they're in there?
They can find their way even if there's an ejaculation on the outside. It's one of the interesting aspects. Yeah. That's a famous way of contraception called coitus interruptus.
Interruptus, yeah.
It doesn't work very well because first there could be sperm in the secretions of the urethra of the male, in any case, even in the pre-ejaculate. But also, I mean, if the ejaculate is in the area of the vulva on the outside genitalia, the sperm can definitely swim through.
Okay. And obviously, if they on the outside or in the vulva area, whatever, what will take them to the right spot is the chemical.
The egg itself.
The egg itself.
The egg itself, which creates an environment which makes the sperm be attracted to the egg.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm happy that I've had my kids already, and that I've. Okay, apparently we've got a caller on the line. Caller, welcome to the show. Can you hear me? Okay, we seem to have lost our caller. Our technical guys will probably try and get him back. All right, just a quick reminder, guys. I'm on Twitter. You can catch me on Who's Your Daddy or at Who's Your Daddy 8. I'm also on Facebook. Please find me. I'd like to become your friend on Facebook. Also read my columns on parent24.com every Friday, Saturday Star on Saturdays, as well as samen.co.za. And please feel free to comment on my columns, because we're going to take that information and bring it onto the show, and we're going to discuss it a little bit more. And as I said, tonight's about conception. Some of the other topics we're going to discuss is breastfeeding and all the issues around parenting. Okay, it looks like we've got Rowan back. Rowan, are you there?
Hi there.
Hi, Rowan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much, guys. First of all, let me start off by saying it's a great show. Thanks. This is a wonderful concept that you got going. You're giving us guys a voice, you know. And my question is for Hitch, the guy that hooks the guys up.
Ramon.
Yeah. Okay. Ladies are always saying, ladies want the good guy, the guy that's going to treat the lady like a queen and all that, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's the dogs, the little guys who aren't treating ladies like queens and stuff like that, who are getting all the women. Why is that?
That's a genetic thing as well. Like, it's just historically. What the nice guys are doing, the mistake is that they are predictable. Okay, and predictability, when you think about it, actually it equals boredom. There's actually like a whole thing that happens in the brain that says when the behavior of the person is predictable, there's actually like a reduction in attraction. For example, like your brother or your sister. Sorry, like if you're a woman, you think about your brothers and so on. If you've got brothers or male friends, their behavior is predictable. So it's the unpredictable guy that becomes fascinating, that actually creates this attraction in the woman that they feel like chasing that man. So one of the things that nice guys have to do is to stop being nice guys, is to stop actually answering all the questions and just learn how to be a little bit more mysterious, unpredictable. You don't have to tell them everything up front. I never try and give a woman a straight answer. If she asks me, like, what do you do for a living? I said, well, it's funny that you've asked. I'm the guy that removes the gum from under the seat after the movies. So I just never give them a straight answer. Because the day you do that, that's when you've actually, in a way, there's a whole status thing that happens as well. So the aggressive guy, the bad guys, they maintain control.
Okay, Ramon, let me jump in here and ask you this. It sounds a bit tiring, because you've got to, it sounds like you have to sustain that. If a woman's interested in me because I'm this badass and whatever, and that's not really who I am, okay, if that is me, that's cool, because I can probably sustain it. But aren't we all sort of aiming for bliss, for something smooth? Or are there some of us that just need the drama?
Yes, it goes on personality types. We spoke about my partner Ruel Leach and his work on the zodiac and the earth, air, fire and water. And so different personalities, like fire, for example, they love this, up and down and the drama, etc., etc.
I'm thinking about the stereotypical Italian relationships where they fight and throw chairs at each other and break glass and whatever, but then they make up and they have passionate love, and that's a daily thing. They sustain themselves with it.
It helps with the adrenaline as well. You see, think about this. If a woman is interacting with a nice guy, she's subconsciously thinking, what is he like in bed?
Maybe he's nice in bed.
But she wants passion. I mean, there's there's a lot of programming, the media, the stories, the fairy tales, the knight in shining armor and all that jazz. Okay. That's going to sweep her off her feet.
Right.
And the guy's predictable. None of that triggers.
All right, Rowan. Sorry, yeah. Rowan. I hope we've answered your question. To an extent.
You did shed a little light on my question,
Tell me something. Do you consider yourself a good guy or a bad guy?
I'm a little bit of both, I can shoot either way. It depends on the girl that I'm after.
Okay, fantastic.
Once you're in a relationship, you can become the nice guy.
Dr. Jeffkov, you wanted to say something just before I interrupted?
It's an interesting concept that I think that happens in long-standing relationships. Because love matures, love changes. I mean, if it starts as passion and just pure lust, it goes through the phases then of the attraction, of the less emotional or hormonal input, but rather the attraction, the intellectual input, and then it matures basically in commitment. Okay. And then after a long-standing relationship, we sometimes become like brothers and sisters. We know too much about each other, so we lose the exoticism too.
Okay, guys, we're almost out of time. It's been fascinating. We've veered off course a little bit. We were talking about conception. This is a parenting show. We've spoken about relationships. But I think we get the point. Be discerning. Choose carefully when you decide to have a child with somebody. It's very important, not just for both of you, but especially for the kid. I'd like to just thank you all for joining us on this historic occasion, the first ever parenting talk show hosted by a man. Thanks to my guests for joining me on the show. It's been fantastic. Thanks to the callers. Don't forget, my contact details are on screen after the show, so please contact me on all of those contact details. We're looking forward to you joining us every Saturday night live here on Mindset, channel 319, right here on DSTV. Thanks so much for joining us.